By the time Hannell dies in November of 1949, the book that bore his name has become almost impossible to find in the United States. Surviving copies pass quietly through used bookshops in major American cities. The original subscribers, those who completed the 24-hour-week course of weekly lessons mailed from St. Louis between 1912 and 1933, hold on to their copies and share them privately with sons, daughters, business partners, and the occasional trusted friend. The book is called The Master Key System. Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. And today we're going to do a deep dive on a lost book, The Master Key, that has helped manifest millions for an entire generation. I've been wanting to do a deep dive for this book for a very long time, and today we're finally going to do it. Sometime in the early months of 1933, the most successful self-help book in American history just disappears. It vanishes from the bookstores, the catalogs of the major distributors listing it. The advertisements that have run continuously in the back of New Thought magazines for the past 21 years just stops appearing. The mail order envelopes that have gone out weekly from a small office in downtown St. Louis since the spring of 1912 stopped going out. These mailings have been going out for 21 years. The book's author, a 67-year-old businessman named Charles Francis Hannell, watches the disappearance occur from his office on the second floor of a brick building on Pine Street. He offers no public statement. He gives no interviews. He continues running the 3 corporations he presides over. He continues writing privately. He withdraws the book from circulation, makes no effort to explain why, and never publicly addresses the matter again. By the time Hannell dies in November of 1949, the book that bore his name has become almost impossible to find in the United States. Surviving copies pass quietly through used bookshops in major American cities. The original subscribers, those who completed the 24-hour-week course of weekly lessons mailed from St. Louis between 1912 and 1933, hold on to their copies and share them privately with sons, daughters, business partners, and the occasional trusted friend. The book becomes the kind of artifact a serious practitioner of inner discipline hears rumored to exist long before he ever sees an actual copy. The book is called The Master Key System, written in 1912 by Charles Hannell and distributed as a correspondence course at $3.60 per installment, mailed out of his St. Louis office 1 week at a time over the 6 months of training. The system would sell over 200,000 copies through ordinary channels by the year of its disappearance. The course had trained the most successful generation of American entrepreneurs of the early 20th century. The discipline it transmitted had quietly shaped the inner lives of the men and women who built the financial structures of an entire era. The methodology was specific, sequential, and unlike anything published before or since in the literature of conscious creation. Then the envelope stopped going out. The reasons for the disappearance remain disputed among the few researchers who have looked into the matter. Some hold that organized New Thought institutions of the period considered Hannell's work too scientific in its framing and too independent of religious authority, and pressured the publisher to withdraw the material. Others hold that the financial principles the book transmitted threatened entrenched interests who had reasons to want the methodology unavailable to the general public. The most documented explanation traces to the death of the original publisher and a tangle of estate and licensing disputes that left the rights stranded for the better part of 4 decades. Whatever the cause, the book vanished. The disappearance was thorough. By the 1950s, asking for the Master Key System in a typical American bookstore would have produced a blank stare from the clerk. By the 1960s, even occult and metaphysical bookshops carried no copies. The course had trained 200,000 practitioners in the disciplined art of conscious creation, effectively ceased to exist in the public record. Then, sometime in the mid-70s, the book began to resurface. Used copies appeared in small bookshops in California and the Pacific Northwest. A small publisher in the Sun Belt acquired the rights and produced a limited reprint. The book passed quietly through the early personnel development networks of the era, ending up in the hands of readers who recognized that they were holding something unlike the contemporary manifestation literature that had begun filling bookshelves in the previous decade. I found my own copy in my early 30s in a used bookshop in Denver, Colorado. Before the reality revolution existed, before I had all these subscribers on YouTube, before the catalog of over 2,500 episodes that I've created on manifestation and consciousness, the very first recordings I made for what would eventually become this channel were attempts to articulate what Charles Hannell had taught me about the actual mechanical operation of manifestation. The recordings never aired. The book was too dense, the exercises too specific. The discipline required was too far outside what most people in the modern audience were willing to attempt. Across many years on this channel, I have covered nearly every figure in the lineage: Neville Goddard, Edgar Cayce, Vadim Zeland, the Law of One, Hermetic philosophers, the channel traditions. Yet the single book that did more than any other to teach me how the system actually works has remained until now uncovered on this channel. The book opened a door for me that none of the more famous texts in the manifestation tradition could fully open. What follows is the story of the man who built the system, the strange and specific exercises that comprise it, the reason the book disappeared in 1933, and the reason the Master Key has shaped the inner life of every serious practitioner of conscious creation who has ever encountered it across the past 100 years. Charles Francis Hannell began his working life as an office boy, born in Ann Arbor, Michigan in May of 1866, the fourth child of a German immigrant teacher who relocated his family to St. Louis when Charles was still a boy. Hannell left school early and took his first paid position with the National Enameling and Stamping Company at the age of 19. The work was clerical and monotonous. The pay was modest. His prospects, by the standards of late 19th century American business culture, appeared limited. Across the next 15 years, the office boy rose. By 1901, at 35, Hannell had departed National Enameling to start his own trading concern. The Continental Commercial Company began modestly dealing in commodities and import goods. Within a decade, Hannell had built it into one of the larger trading conglomerates in the American Midwest. The company spawned subsidiaries. He acquired the Sacramento Valley Improvement Company. He took the presidency of the Mexico Gold and Silver Mining Company. By the publication of the Master Key System in 1912, the former office boy presided over a commercial empire stretching from the cotton fields of the Mississippi Valley to the silver mines of northern Mexico. What set Hannell apart from his peers was the quiet methodology he had developed across the rising years. His business associates noticed it before anyone else. The man approached every commercial problem with a level of mental discipline that struck observers as singular. He would spend hours alone in his office, with the door closed, doing nothing apparently more productive than sitting motionless in a chair. He kept regular hours of solitary meditation that other businessmen of his era would have considered eccentric, even faintly ridiculous. Yet his results spoke. Investments he initiated produced returns. Negotiations he entered went his way. The companies he assembled performed in markets where comparable enterprises failed. Hannell offered no public explanation for any of this during the rising years. The methodology was private. The discipline was personal. Whatever inner system he had developed, he kept entirely to himself across the 2 decades it took him to build the business that made his fortune. Then sometime around 1909, he began writing. The first version of the Master Key took the form of a private course distributed to a small circle of business contacts who had asked him directly what accounted for his consistent results. The course consisted of 24 lessons. Each lesson contained a specific exercise. The exercises built on one another in a precise sequence, each presupposing the mastery of the preceding lesson and preparing the student for one to follow. By 1912, Hannell had refined the material into a form suitable for public distribution. He began advertising the course nationally. The price was $3.60 per installment, totaling roughly $90 for the complete course, equivalent in modern terms to several $1,000s. The cost reflected Hannell's deliberate intention to attract serious students rather than casual readers. Within 4 years, the course had sold so widely that Hannell collected the lessons into a single bound volume and released the book under the same title. By 1933, the book had moved over 200,000 copies through ordinary distribution channels, excluding the additional volumes sold through Hannell's own Master Key Institute in New York. Then, the book vanished. Sometime in the mid-30s, the Master Key system ceased to be widely distributed. Theories about the disappearance vary. Some researchers hold that organized New Thought institutions of the period considered the book heretical for its scientific framing and its refusal of religious vocabulary. Others hold that the technique was deliberately withdrawn from public availability because the financial principles it transmitted threatened established interests. The most likely explanation traces to the death of Hannell's principal publisher and the simple commercial reality that the rights fell to a tangle of estates and licensing disputes that no party invested in resolving. Whatever the cause, the book disappeared from American bookshelves for nearly 4 decades. Surviving copies became rare. The methodology Hannell had assembled passed into the hands of a small underground network of practitioners who guarded their copies, taught the exercises privately, and waited for the book to resurface. Resurface it did. In the late 70s, when a small California publisher discovered a copy in a used bookshop and obtained permission to reprint, the book has remained available since. Yet the deeper teaching it contains, the actual 24-week discipline Hannell designed, has been studied seriously by only a small fraction of the readers who have purchased the modern editions. Most people who buy the book read the chapters once, find the prose dense and the framework challenging, and set it aside. The exercises require a level of sustained commitment that contemporary reading culture rarely supports. 24 weeks of daily practice, with a single specific assignment for each week, constitutes a discipline closer to monastic training than to ordinary self-help. Those who complete the program report results unlike anything they have encountered in the broader manifestation literature. What follows is that system. What I want you to do is sit down somewhere quiet. Find a chair. Take the position you would take if you were about to read for a long time, with the spine upright and hands resting comfortably. Set a timer for 15 minutes. Close your eyes. Now sit perfectly still. If you have to pause it, that's fine. Go ahead. No movement, no fidgeting, no shifting of weight, no scratching of the itch that will develop behind your ear within the first 90 seconds. The legs stay where they were placed. The hands stay where they were placed. The body remains absolutely motionless for the entire 15-minute interval. Almost no one can do this on the first attempt. Within 90 seconds, the body begins to protest. An itch develops in the scalp. A muscle in the lower back signals discomfort. The foot wants to shift. The hands want to move. The accumulated tension the modern nervous system carries continuously beneath the threshold of awareness surfaces the moment the body is denied its habitual outlets. Now, if you attempted this, what you just attempted is the first exercise of a 24-week training program transmitted by Charles Hannell through the mail order envelopes that went out of his St. Louis office between 1912 and 1933. 200,000 American readers completed this course. The discipline they trained through Hannell's exercise produced, in the most successful of them, the inner capacity from which conscious creation operates as a sustained way of being. What follows is the whole system. Open the first lesson. The text arrives with no fanfare. Hannell writes in a measured, instructional voice that assumes the reader is an intelligent adult capable of following careful logic. The opening lesson establishes the foundational claim of the entire system in a single sequence of propositions. All power comes from within. The world without is a reflection of the world within. What appears in outer circumstances was first constructed in inner states. To change the outer, you must change the inner. To change the inner, you must first develop the capacity to control your own mind. To control your own mind, you must train through specific exercises performed in specific sequences until the capacity becomes habitual and the results become reliable. Hannell pauses on this framing for several pages before introducing the first exercise. The first exercise sounds preposterously simple. Most readers encountering it for the first time dismiss the assignment as too elementary to merit attention. This dismissal is the first mistake. It is what I would give you as your first lesson in the reality revolution before you do anything else. This is the first and most important lesson. Week 1, sit perfectly still. That is the assignment. The student selects a room, a chair, a position, and a time of day. The chosen room should be quiet. The chair should be comfortable enough to permit sitting for 15 minutes without distraction. The position should allow the spine to remain upright and the muscles to settle. The time of day should be consistent across the entire week. Having arranged these conditions, the student sits. He sits in complete physical stillness for 15 minutes. No fidgeting, no shifting of weight, no scratching of an itch, no crossing or uncrossing of the legs, no adjustment of the position once it has been taken. The student remains motionless for the entire 15-minute interval. This is the assignment, the same that you may have just attempted as you opened this lesson. Almost no one can do it on the first attempt. Within 90 seconds, the body begins to protest. The student resists, he holds the position, he fails, he starts over. Hannell addresses this directly. Failure on the first attempt is anticipated, expected, and necessary. The exercise has a specific purpose, hidden beneath its apparent simplicity. The purpose is the establishment of voluntary control over the physical organism. Before the student can train the mind to obey his deliberate intention, he must first demonstrate that the body will obey. The 15 minutes of stillness repeated daily for 7 days builds the substrate on which every subsequent exercise will rest. And if you do it, if you follow the exercises by the 24-week allotment that's given to you, everything changes. By the end of the first week, most students have achieved a few intervals of sustained stillness. The body, given a clear and consistent instruction over 7 consecutive days, begins to yield. The deep muscles release their habitual tension. The breath slows. The mind, the body's complaint silenced, becomes available for the work that comes next. In your second week, you inhibit all thought. Having taken the same chair, the same room, the same position, the student now adds a second discipline. He releases the contents of the mind. Whatever thoughts arise, he refuses to engage them. He neither pursues nor argues with the thoughts that pass through his awareness. He allows them to surface and then permits them to dissolve, the way a cloud surfaces against a clear sky and then dissolves without leaving a trace. Hannell offers no claim that this will be possible for more than a few seconds at a time during the first attempts. The exercise has a specific purpose. The student is meant to discover, through direct experience, the sheer volume of involuntary thought that floods the ordinary mind. The 15-minute interval reveals what the noise level inside an unmanaged consciousness actually is. The student observes the chaos. They see what they have been living with. Recognition precedes mastery. Until the student perceives the contents of his own mental noise, he has no leverage by which to begin organizing it. In the third week, you release all physical tension. The third exercise refines the first. Having achieved sustained physical stillness in week 1, the student now adds deliberate relaxation. He sits, becomes still, then working through the body in sequence, he releases the muscular tension held in each region. The scalp first, then the face, then the neck and shoulders and the arms, the hands, the chest, the abdomen, the back, the thighs, the calves, and the feet. By the end of the 15 minutes, every voluntary muscle in the body has been instructed to release. The blood circulates without resistance. The nervous system enters a state Hannell calls receptive. The exercise prepares the body for the work that will follow by removing the chronic muscular armor most adults carry without recognition. Week 4, you release all mental tension. The fourth exercise extends the third. The student, having mastered physical relaxation, now performs the same operation on the contents of his emotional life. He sits, he releases the body. Then, working with the same systematic patience, he releases his emotional charges. Hatred, if present, is released. Anger is released. Worry is released. Jealousy is released. Sorrow is released. Disappointment is released. Whatever inner residue the student has been carrying from his recent days, his recent years, his entire accumulated history is consciously and deliberately allowed to dissolve. Hannell acknowledges that the student will resist this. The emotional charges feel important. Releasing them feels dangerous. The mind argues that to release the resentment is to forgive the wrong, that to release the worry is to court disaster, that to release the grief is to betray the person grieved for. Every one of these arguments is defense the unconscious mounts against the loss of its accustomed identifications. The student persists. You release anyway. By the end of the week, what felt impossible at the start has become possible. The accumulated emotional residue, held without effort for years, begins to drain. Hannell addresses what makes this fourth exercise pivotal. The emotional charges the student carries are the primary obstacle to the constructive work that begins in week 5. An image projected from a contaminated emotional field carries the contamination with it. The student attempting to manifest abundance from an emotional state saturated with resentment manifests the resentment along with the abundance, with predictable results in the outer life. The clearing has to occur first. Only after the inner space has been emptied of its habitual occupants can the constructed image enter the subconscious without distortion. These 4 foundational weeks comprise a deliberate program of inner hygiene. The body has learned obedience. The thought stream has been observed and quieted. The musculature has been relaxed. The emotional residue has been released. The student now occupies an inner space. The average adult never enters in the course of an ordinary lifetime. From this cleared space, the actual work of conscious creation becomes possible. Now the system begins to do its actual work. Weeks 1 through 4 prepare the substrate. The student has trained the body to obey, the thought stream to quiet, the muscular system to release, the emotional residue to dissolve. With these foundations in place, Hannell turns the student toward the active construction of inner imagery. Week 5, you build a complete mental picture. Having taken the chair, the student now selects a location he knows well, a place with pleasant associations, a childhood home, a favorite park, a room in which he has been happy. The student closes their eyes and constructs the location in mental imagery. They see the buildings, they see the grounds, the trees, the friends who occupied the place, the sounds, the smells, the quality of the light. Each element receives deliberate attention. The student practices holding the complete image in awareness for as long as possible without the picture dissolving or shifting. Hannell warns the student that this will be difficult. The untrained mind, given a complex image to hold, will wander within seconds. The student will find his attention drifting to unrelated thoughts. Each time the attention drifts, they gently return to the image and resume the construction. Across the 7 days of the exercise, the duration of sustained attention increases. By the end of the week, the student has developed the ability to hold a complex mental image for several minutes at a time. By the 6th week, concentrate on a single small object, bringing a photograph to the same seat in the same room at the same time. The student examines the image for 10 minutes without breaking attention. The expression of the eyes, the form of the features, the arrangement of the hair, the texture of the clothing, every detail visible on the photograph receives sustained gaze. Then the student covers the photograph and closes their eyes. They attempt to recall every detail of the image without omission. The expression, the features, the arrangement, the texture, every detail. If recall is incomplete, the student repeats the exercise. They return to the photograph, examine what they missed, cover the image again, attempt the recall a second time. The process continues until perfect mental reproduction has been achieved. Hannell calls the development of attention the capacity to direct awareness with full intensity onto a single object for a sustained period of time is the prerequisite for every subsequent exercise in the system until the student can hold attention without slippage. The more advanced practices will fail to produce reliable results. Week 7, you begin the construction of the desired outcome. Here the system pivots from preparation to deployment. Having developed the foundational disciplines across the first 6 weeks, the student now applies the trained capacities to the construction of what they actually want in their life. Position is taken, the body is stilled, the mind is quieted, the muscular tension is released, the emotional residue is dissolved. Into the resulting inner space, the student introduces the image of the outcome they intend to manifest. Hannell is specific about what the image should contain. The student selects a single outcome, a specific result, a defined condition they wish to bring into their life. The image should be detailed, vivid, and complete. The student should see themselves inhabiting the outcome rather than observing it from the outside. They should feel the texture of the day in which the outcome has already been achieved. They should hear the conversations that occur within that day. They should smell the air. They should perceive the satisfaction that the outcome produces in the version of themselves who already live inside it. The image once constructed is held in awareness for as long as the student can sustain the attention. Then the student releases the image and ends the session. The exercise is performed daily at the same hour in the same chair, in the same room, with the same image for the entire week. The image stays constant. The student practices the same scene with the same detail, with the same emotional saturation every day for 7 days. By the end of the week, the image has been impressed upon the subconscious with sufficient consistency that the mechanisms of the deeper mind begin their work. Hannell described the process in mechanical terms. The conscious mind functions as the architect who designs the building. The subconscious mind functions as the contractor who constructs the building. Once the design has been impressed upon the contractor with sufficient clarity and repetition, the construction proceeds automatically, drawing upon resources the architect was unaware of and producing results the architect would have failed to engineer through ordinary effort. Across the remaining 17 weeks, the system extends and deepens the practice. Week 8 refines the relationship between the imagination and emotion, training the student to saturate their constructed images with the feeling tone of the achieved outcome rather than the longing tone of unfulfilled desire. Week 9 introduces the principle of substitution, instructing the student to replace each undesired thought, the moment it arises, with the corresponding desired thought until the pattern of replacement becomes automatic, as taught by Joseph Murphy. Week 10 addresses the relationship between visualization and physical action, correcting the common misunderstanding that mental work substitutes for outer effort. The student learns instead that focused inner imagery produces a quality of outer action no amount of unfocused effort can match. Week 11 introduces deliberate concentration on a single idea for 30 minutes without interruption. A discipline most modern readers will find approaches the upper limit of human attention. Week 12 directs the student to cultivate a specific quality, courage, or patience, or love, or determination until that quality becomes habitual rather than occasional. Week 13 introduces the principle of the law of attraction in its mechanical formulation, with detailed instructions for how the student is to use the law deliberately rather than allowing it to operate accidentally. Week 14 focuses on the management of money consciousness, the inner state the student must inhabit to attract material abundance with the same reliability they attract other forms of conditions. Week 15 turns to health with specific instructions for the inner work that supports physical well-being. Week 16 addresses creativity. Week 17 treats the relationship between intuition and the rational mind. Week 18 examines the role of harmony in attracting favorable conditions. Weeks 19 through 23 integrate the prior teachings into increasingly sophisticated combinations, with each week assigning a meditation that draws upon several of the foundational principles simultaneously. Week 24 offers the final synthesis. The student, having completed 23 weeks of disciplined practice, sits one last time in the same chair, in the same room, at the same hour, and performs the culminating exercise. They visualize the entire trajectory of their future life in its developed and mature form as a present reality already accomplished, essentially envisioning their future self. Hannell offers no claim that this single exercise produces dramatic results. The transformation in his framing has been occurring across the entire 24 weeks of training. By the time you reach the final lesson, you have been changed. The mind that performs the final visualization is a different mind from the one that sat down for the first exercise 23 weeks earlier. The discipline has produced its result. The student has been remade into someone capable of conscious creation as a sustained way of being. Several details about the structure deserve mention. Hannell insisted on the same chair, the same room, the same hour, the same position across all 24 weeks. The repetition served a purpose. The nervous system, encountering the same physical conditions each day, begins to associate those conditions with the inner state being trained. Within a few weeks, simply taking the chair triggers the onset of a cleared inner space. The body remembers what the discipline has taught it. The state has become accessible by location. The 15-minute duration was deliberate, long enough for the foundational shifts to occur, short enough for the modern student to maintain across daily practice without abandoning the program through fatigue or resistance. Hannell was a businessman. He understood the practical limits of what could be asked of a working adult engaged in earning a living. The system was designed for executives, attorneys, physicians, CEOs, traders, merchants. The 15-minute commitment had to fit inside an existing schedule without displacing the work that funded the student's life. Those who complete the 24 weeks, in my experience, and in the testimony of every serious practitioner that I've encountered that has tried this, describe the same outcome. The book does the work. The exercises produce the result. The trained student walks out of the program holding a faculty they could have only approximated before. Now, I'm sure you've seen books on YouTube where you can listen to the whole Master Key. It's not a book that you sit and listen to or a book that you read in one session. It's all about the lessons and doing it for the 24 weeks. It's not a book to read. It's a book to experience. What separates the Master Key from the dozens of other works in the manifestation lineage is the architecture of progressive training. Most contemporary manifestation teachings present the principles without the discipline. A teacher describes visualization, then asks the student to visualize. Yet the student has never trained the capacity to hold an image without it shifting, has never learned to sit in stillness without the body interfering, has never developed the muscular relaxation that allows inner imagery to deepen, has never cleared the emotional residue that contaminates every constructed scene with its unprocessed charge. The student attempts the visualization and finds it slips through their fingers. They conclude that visualization fails to work, or they have aphasia where they can't see, or that they are somehow defective in their capacity for this practice. Hannell removed this failure by inserting the prerequisite training. And I'm telling you, if you have struggles with visualization, or you have even said that you have a situation where you have aphasia, where you cannot see images, yet you can still dream and you can see memories, then what you probably need to do is the Master Key training. The first 6 weeks of the Master Key contain no manifestation work at all in the conventional sense. The student is building the infrastructure: stillness, mental quiet, muscular release, emotional clearing, sustained attention, detailed recall. These 6 capacities developed in sequence across the first 6 weeks are the engine that powers everything that follows. Without them, the manifestation work that comprises the remaining 18 weeks would fail in the same way it fails for almost everyone who attempts to work without prior training. The genius of the system is the sequence. Each week presupposes the prior week. The student who has skipped week 1 fails at week 2. The student who has skipped weeks 1 through 4 fails completely the moment he attempts the constructive imagery of week 5. Hannell understood that the human nervous system requires the foundational training before the advanced practices can be absorbed. And he refused to compromise the sequence to make the book more accessible to casual readers. This refusal accounts both for the book's effectiveness and for its limited adoption. Most readers encountering the apparent simplicity of week 1 miss the point. They read the exercise, consider it elementary, skip the assignment, and move on to the more advanced material. Within a few weeks, they are attempting visualizations they have no capacity to sustain, getting no results, and abandoning the system as ineffective. The system was effective. The reader bypassed the only path by which the effectiveness could have manifested. Those who follow the sequence week by week, exercise by exercise, with the patience to remain in week 1 until the assignment has been mastered, find themselves crossing a threshold by week 6 or week 7 that they had no awareness existed before they began. The mind properly trained develops capacities. The untrained mind has no framework to recognize as possibilities. The student becomes someone new. I crossed this threshold. What the system produced in me was the trained capacity to enter at will the inner state from which conscious creation operates. The visualization is sustained without slippage. The emotional saturation is genuine. The release of attachment, the timing of manifestation becomes natural. The faith required for the outcome to develop without anxiety becomes structural rather than aspirational. The work I have done across the past decade on this channel, the books, the events, the community, every outer development has issued from the trained inner capacity Hannell taught me to develop through the 24-week sequence. The Master Key System is the book that built the substrate. Beyond the architecture of the exercises, Hannell transmitted a specific working theory of how reality conforms to mental states. The theory functioned as the explanation that allowed the student to perform the exercises with the level of commitment they required. Most students will refuse to sit still for 15 minutes a day for 6 months unless they understand why the practice produces the result the practice produces. Hannell offered the explanation. His framework was straightforward. The universe, he wrote, is a single field of intelligent energy expressing itself through the appearance of separate forms. Every thought a human being generates is a movement within this field. Thoughts of sufficient intensity, sustained across enough repetition, attract corresponding patterns of energy to the thinker. The patterns then express themselves as outer conditions, people, opportunities, and events that conform to the inner state from which they were drawn. Hannell went further. He proposed that the mechanism operates with the precision of a physical law. Electricity, he observed, follows reliable principles. So does gravity. So does the chemistry of combustion. The student who understands the principles can produce reliable results. The student who fails to understand the principles produces results by accident and calls them luck or misfortune, depending on whether the outcomes align with what they want. The master key in Hannell's framing was the manual for the law as it operates in the realm of mental causation. Every condition the student encounters in their outer life is the precise result of inner conditions previously held. Change the inner conditions, the outer follows. Maintain the same inner conditions, the outer reproduces what it has reproduced before. Hannell acknowledged that this framework would strike his readers as strange in 1912, the same year the Titanic sunk, and Henry Ford had just begun mass-producing automobiles. The materialist worldview dominated the educated classes. The idea that mental discipline could produce material results carried the flavor of superstition for most of his contemporaries. Yet the businessman who completed his course reported the results his theory predicted. The framework worked because it described an actual mechanism, regardless of whether the mainstream culture of his era had developed the vocabulary to accommodate the description. The framework still works. 1 century after Hannell mailed the first envelope out of his office in St. Louis, the principles he transmitted have been confirmed by every serious researcher into the mechanics of consciousness who has approached the work with the discipline Hannell required. The contemporary physics of consciousness, the research into the relationship between focused attention and quantum scale events, the data on group meditation and statistical anomalies, the documented result of trained remote viewers in laboratory conditions, all of it converges on the architecture Hannell was describing through the exercises of his 24-hour course. One story you may have heard that's been repeated many times. A 19-year-old undergraduate sits alone in a dormitory room at Harvard University in the autumn of 1974. The room is small. The desk is cluttered. The student has been struggling for months with a decision that will determine the entire trajectory of his life. He's been considering dropping out of school. On the desk in front of him sits a book. The book is small, the pages are old, the cover is worn. The book has been out of print in the United States for almost 40 years. He acquired a copy from a used bookshop in Cambridge several months earlier. He's been reading and rereading the chapters for the past 6 weeks. Performing the daily exercises the book describes, watching something in his own mental functioning begin to change. The student's name was William Henry Gates III, Bill Gates. Within months, he will drop out of Harvard. Within decades, he will build the largest software company in the world. The book that gave him the inner conviction to make the choice that everyone in his life advised against was published in 1912 by Charles Francis Hannell. It was the Master Key, the same one that we're discussing today. Now step back and consider what Hannell was actually offering. Across the surface of the past century, the manifestation tradition has produced thousands of books, courses, workshops, recordings, applications, and platforms. The vast majority of these teach the principles without the discipline. They describe what conscious creation is. They explain the law of attraction. They list the steps. They quote the masters. Yet they fail to deliver the trained capacity by which the principles actually function inside a human nervous system. Hannell delivered the trained capacity. His method is slow. His method demands daily practice across 6 months of consistent effort. His method refuses the shortcuts contemporary culture demands. His method assumes the student is willing to do the work no one is willing to do because the result the student wants requires a development no easier path can produce. You've arrived at this point in the transmission. You've heard something most listeners will fail to recognize. The system is available. The book remains in print. The 24 weeks of training are accessible to anyone willing to commit to the daily discipline. The same exercises that Hannell mailed out of his office in St. Louis in 1912 are the exercises you can begin tomorrow morning. In a chair you already own, in a room you already occupy, at a time you already control. What stops the average reader is the same thing that stopped the average reader in 1912. The work feels too small at the beginning. The opening exercises are too simple. The promise of dramatic transformation through the disciplined practice of 15 minutes of stillness a day appears insufficient when measured against the scale of what the student truly wishes to bring into their life. The student dismisses the foundation, attempts the advanced practice, fails to produce the result, and walks away from the book convinced the methodology was overrated. The methodology was the rated methodology. The reader bypassed the only route by which the rating could have been earned, and so we still question whether it is effective. If you have done the full 24-week sequence described in the Master Key, I want you to put it in the comments. Please share your accomplishment because it is an accomplishment. If you take nothing else from this, the exercises work. The sequence works. The 24-week commitment produces in the student who completes it a faculty the broader culture has spent a century unable to deliver through faster methods. Sit somewhere quiet tonight. Select your chair, choose your room, identify the time of day at which you will return to this practice for the next 7 days. Begin the exercise. Sit still for 15 minutes. The book that built a generation of millionaires before disappearing from American bookshelves in the 1930s, the system that quietly resurfaced in the 70s and waited for readers willing to engage it, the discipline that produced in me the trained inner capacity from which everything I have built in the past decade has issued, is available to you now in this moment. Hannell mailed the first envelope out of St. Louis in the spring of 1912 because he believed the system he had assembled was capable of changing any life willing to receive it. And the envelope has reached you. It's arrived now. The lesson is the same lesson the original students received over 100 years ago. If you'd like to try these exercises with my group, we are going to be working on doing the master key together in my school group. It helps when you have others that do this together. You can share your progress. If you want to join us, you can find the link in the description at school.com, skool.com/Reality Revolution, where I have weekly group coaching sessions and exclusive content you can't find anywhere else. And there's no way I could properly teach the 24-week system in a YouTube video, even a sequence of YouTube videos. It's just not how YouTube works. But we want to do this together as a group. We're going to undergo the master key together as a part of my trainings. And so by the end of the next 24 weeks, something amazing is about to happen. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution. Hey, welcome to The Reality Revolution. I'm Brian Scott. Over the last year, I have had the honor of hosting some amazing live in-person events, something I never thought that I would do. And I have grown and changed so much in these experiences. The opportunity to meet so many of you, to shake your hand, to hug you, to hear your stories, to watch the way that you grow, to see your changes, to get to know you. So many of you have followed my channel. It's been such an exciting experience. So when we were thinking about our next event, we decided we wanted to do something a little different. So many of you have found me through my teachings on money, on large sums of money, on the affirmations that I use. And so we brainstormed and came together with an amazing event. Over 3 days, we've planned out some of the most incredible meditative techniques, exercises, and teachings that I have ever done. 9 immersive meditations, all designed to shift you into the reality where large sums of money come to you easily and quickly. There is nothing I want more than for you to experience absolute prosperity. I want you to live a life where you are free to do what you want when you want. I want you to be able to choose when you wake up, when you go to sleep. I want you to lead a business that empowers you, that fulfills you. I want you to live a life where you choose where you live. You live in your dream home. You travel the world. I want all of this for you, and it's available to you. I believe when we come together at these events, magic happens. And so I want to have the opportunity to become a catalyst for you, to join me for 3 days so that we can manifest the most incredible life for you, one that makes you incredibly prosperous, where you tune into infinite streams of money. You walk through storms of money all around you. You experience it in every way, shape, and form. Large sums of money are coming to you. Join me in Austin on September 18th through the 20th at the Hyatt Regency. You can find the link in the description at www.brianscottlive.com/Austin-2026.